Hello and welcome. Let's talk tabletop. Today's question or query or topic comes from pbtenchi. I'm going to think that the PB means peanut butter, so peanut butter tenchi. You ever watch that show? There's like 5 or 6 animes now of Tenchi Muyo. I grew up with the Tenchi Muyo show. And he says, what questions do you ask yourself when building a campaign? Now, yeah, building a campaign is a big, sprawling topic. In fact, I made a series of videos, like 6 videos, that went into campaign construction, but that's more specific questions you ask yourself when you're building a campaign than the bits and pieces that go when you're crafting something. So I narrowed it down to like 7 or 8 big topics to consult yourself before you put pen to paper, before you waste all the work, draw any maps, talk about any characters, do anything. These are some of the things that you should ask yourself before you put the work in, okay? So, number 1, of course, what's the story? Does it have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Now, especially nowadays in our busy lives, lining up 5, 6, 7 people's schedules is getting harder and harder and harder. It really is, unless you've got just like a devoted game group that plays every week or every other week, or heaven forbid once a month. You don't want to be, this is my opinion, you don't want to wander the sandbox when there's a big epic story to be told, or better yet, a short epic story to be told. I am more drawn towards the campaigns that have a very strict beginning and middle and end. Not necessarily railroading. There's exploration to be had, there's mysteries to solve, etc., etc. But a lot of the time, just lately, I've been designing campaigns where I say, okay, I want it to be 5 sessions long. Or I want it to be 2 sessions long. I want it to be 7 sessions long. And then out of that framework of time spent with the group, I'll start molding the campaign into chunks accordingly. Now, sometimes it runs over, sometimes, players skip over stuff and it runs shorter, etc., etc., but if you have a story set down in front of you, make sure you can do it in like a few sentences. Like, what did I talk about before? The 3-sentence pitch. If you can narrow your campaign into 3 sentences, chances are it's a strong idea. Like, scientists, get a mosquito out of amber and resurrect long extinct dinosaurs. And they build a big amusement park, but meat-eating dinosaurs break out, and everybody who's trapped on this island gets away via a helicopter. That's the 3-sentence pitch for Jurassic Park. So you can do that. It doesn't matter, even like Lord of the Rings. A ring of power falls into the hands of Frodo, and he's got to make it all the way to Mordor to throw it into the ring of fire. He must, Sauron the God, I haven't even looked at Lord of the Rings in a long time. But if you can narrow it into 3 strong sentences, chances are it's a good story. Just make sure that there's not a lot of, you don't want random battles, you don't want to build the world if they're only going to wander around in one region. Don't give yourself more work than you have to. Know what the story is about before you start building, beginning, middle, and especially the end. The next question I ask myself is, have I done this before? Now, you can throw an overarching blanket over most quests, like, go get X, go kill 5 bears and bring back their bear asses, and then you'll get a loincloth. That's a quest. Or go kill X and assassinate this warlock who's messing around in necromancy. Or go create X. Go put all the pieces of this magic sword together and deliver it to the hero of the land or whatever it happens to be. Quests like that can fall under heavy blankets, but campaigns can do much the same. You know, gather the magic crystals, you know, go save the princess, go slay the vampire lord in his castle at the top of the mountain, etc., etc. There are stereotypes and tropes and things, but not necessarily all of them have come to your table. I mean, I've never run a vampire game before. I could still do that. Or, you know, and I've run, and I say collect the crystals, but you kind of know what I mean. Collect the MacGuffins, the amulets, the rings, the 9 magic swords, whatever it happens to be. The collection quest campaigns tend to be the weakest, which is why I try to avoid them, even though I just did the collect the 5 sacred artifacts quest with the Dwarven Mountain campaign, but those were tangible items that had uses and that could be used in battle, etc., etc., so I kind of sidestepped it, but not really. The reason to do have I done this before is not only to keep it fresh, but to challenge yourself to where, you know, if you haven't done this before, at least it'll be a new framework. Like, have you ever run like a Grimm Brothers campaign where it's all like werewolves and crossbows and everybody's weapons have to be touched with silver or otherwise they're shit weapons? Or have you ever done a campaign with freaking angels in it where there's a war in heaven and the battles take place on mountaintops, so you gotta run over there, run from mountain to mountain to help out with each battle? Or you've all been sent to hell, so you have to cross the plateau of the second circle of hell and there's giant fucking penises sticking up out of the ground. I don't know, just whatever. If you've been reading your Dante's Inferno, there's a lot of a lot of ideas in there. Have I done this before is a big one, because it'll at least make sure that you're comparing this campaign to all the campaigns you've done before. And if none of them sound similar, then you're on the right track. Next, of course, is will the players be 3 steps ahead of me? Now, not every campaign is going to be a mystery, because players can't predict well-done mystery campaigns, but if you have, like, okay, here's the start of this quest, we want you to go collect the 5 crystals of the blah-de-blah lands, then yeah, they're going to know exactly how that campaign's going to go. They're going to collect the crystals, they're going to come back, the campaign's going to be over. There's nothing there of interest. But suppose you send them into a town where everybody is dead except for the one guy that got away because there were monsters in the night coming out of the forest. What kind of monsters? He doesn't know. He was too busy running. And then they examine, and they come across claw marks, and they come across large dog prints. They come across broken wood and charred metal and things like that, and they're arguing over what kind of monster is it, and they stay the night, and the town is overrun by fucking werewolves and different things like that, where they're not certain until it's upon them. You know, segmented campaigns, like I was telling you, writing things episodically, like in chunks, like say you wanted a 5-session campaign. Setting up a short mystery that they can't be sure of until it's in their faces is a good way to do things. You don't want to write a campaign where the players already know what's going to happen. Why play it? You know, if you're going to go rescue a princess, well, whoopity-doo, how did she get kidnapped? You know, surely she lives at home in a big castle with her mother and her father and a 10,000 fucking guard infantry. So who's the traitor? You know, who belted her over the head and dragged her outside or through the sewer level or whatever the hell? How did she get out of that castle with nobody noticing? So there's political intrigue. There's a traitor in our midst, or a jealous younger sister, or somebody who's not quite so loyal to the crown. Rescue the Princess is a flimsy start to a campaign and should not be its end. It should be the very, very beginning, because why? You want your players to ask why, and that will lead credence to your story, because when something stupid and tropey happens, oh, the princess got kidnapped, great, now we're going to go get her back. And then as soon as you bring her back in one session, because that's all it should take, it should not be a big epic quest, because it's been done 1,000 times. When they go, they rescue the princess, they bring her back, then they need to go talk to her. What happened? Who kidnapped you? Why? Did they say anything? Did you see anything? That should churn on into a greater story that your players can't see coming. You want to be very certain that there are twists and turns to your campaign that your players can't predict 5 sessions before they happen. Otherwise, why sit and play the game? You've already seen this episode of Pirates of Darkwater. Oh, I'm dating myself. Anyway, and obviously there are technical things like what's the level range going to be for your campaign. If you've got 5 sessions to work with, are they going to start at level 1 and graduate at level 5? Do you want to start at level 10 and work your way to level 13? That's going to help you a lot in terms of like selecting monsters, deciding how much treasure to give, deciding what kind of traps to have, deciding who and what their enemies are, because they don't tend to be like feral monsters. There's usually like a big bad or a faction or something like that. That way you'll be able to kind of slot numbers in based on how strong they are or how strong they're going to be. So that's a big one, if only to help you hash out the technicalities of the campaign, is what level are you starting at and what level are you going to end up at. So that's a short one. What is the bad ending? Now, I've run into, and having met like over 100 people, especially with the Gamers Guild at Western Kentucky University, having been at least in proximity to over 100 D&D players, I know it's not very popular, but there are some DMs that plot out bad endings. Whether you are told to do something multiple times and you just don't do it, or you have like downtime and you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but you really want to work on that armor set you've been creating, or you want to make a character that can build golems, and that takes time, and you do that instead of spreading the word about the werewolves that are roaming the countryside, etc., etc. So the next town over gets eaten because you didn't send a warning messenger like you were fucking supposed to. You need to plan for contingencies, and there are even, and I've done this a couple of times, there are even portions where players are too stupid to live, and there's really no reason to do this. Like, I've had people, going back to werewolves, we'll use that as an example. Say you figured out that it's werewolves. You know there's a bunch of them because they ate this whole fucking town and only one guy got away. So what do your players do? We set up camp in the inn, or we set up camp in the old church, it's holy ground, or whatever they happen to do, and they don't bar the doors, or they leave one of the windows open, or worse yet, they don't set up anybody for watch. Everybody goes to sleep. They don't leave anybody up to, like, keep an eye out for fucking werewolves. And I've literally had to, like, put my paper down and say, you wake up dead. There were 7 werewolves just outside the inn, and you left a fucking window open. You're all dead. I'm sorry. Yeah, the coup de grace comes when you're asleep. And it doesn't matter if you're wearing your armor in bed. It doesn't matter if you've got a dodge chance of 87%. You're unconscious. You're too stupid to live. I'm sorry. You're all dead. I've had campaigns go like that, and they don't really make it onto D&D stories or anything because it's like one session and then they're gone. Or worse yet, they're in a non-defensible area like a forest clearing, or like they'll make camp next to a waterfall and there's a cave behind the waterfall and they know it, but there's like a black bear back there and it tears one of their fucking throats out because nobody set up the watch. You have to, if it's not possible for them to lose, then there's not a lot of reason to play. I know that sounds like a really harsh philosophy, but otherwise you're just kind of jacking off with your characters. There's, you know, if you can't fail, why try? Because it's just, the world's going to keep going without you. Oh, you know, it's like the survival check or the tracking check that rangers would get. It's like, oh no, the orcs have come and stolen all the women out of the village, and it's like the ranger's like, I tracked them with my survival skill, blah, and he rolls a 1. Well, I guess we're never gonna see the women again. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to happen. Maybe they were just expert at covering their tracks, and the world spins a different way now. Now there's this whole village where everybody lost their wives and daughters, and that's really tragic, but there's always that chance for the one. Set aside a couple of notes for mostly, let's be honest, mostly for player agency, to where if they don't do something that they know they oughta, things that will happen, bad consequences, not necessarily death, but bad things that can happen if they don't take good care of themselves. Another good example is going into an extreme environment, like a tundra or a desert. You know, if they don't get extra clothes and, you know, suntan lotion or sun oil or whatever it's called in D&D, you know, if they don't have a guide and they don't know where they're going and they've never been there, they don't have a map, they just wander into the fucking wasteland, yeah, they're gonna take fire damage. Yeah, they're gonna go through all their water in a day and a half. You know, yeah, a lot of the times it's just, hey, you ran into a desert with no water, no guide, no map, and no protection. What did you expect? You know, you have to give them consequences for taking things for granted or for not doing what they probably know they should be doing. So be prepared for a bad ending, because if they can't happen, then they're just safe all the time. And that's not very exciting, is it? Next is, what am I banning? Now wait, before some of you guys are like, oh, I don't ban anything, let them come, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's a matter of context. Like, say your campaign takes place in medieval Western Europe, you know, the high fantasy setting that most of us use anyway. You're not going to have a lot of ninjas and samurai and, like, shonen warrior, like warlords and weird things like that from, like, the far east of China or whatever equivalent of China. They don't fit the setting. You know, even like, I've had some people say no monks. Because, you know, in medieval Western Europe, monks are like bzzzt, occidented. You know, they copy manuscripts and they have a high religious score, but you may as well roll a cleric. You know, a kung fu monk would not be in medieval Western Europe. So you might ban a class, or it could be dependent on the setting. Like, if you're running like on a desert setting where water is precious and there's like no such thing as lakes or oceans or anything, you might say, okay, we're putting a ban on swimming. You know, so just like get into your character sheet, go to your skills, and just draw a black line through swimming. You don't know how to swim. You know, that just makes sense for the setting, and they'll thank you because they won't be wasting their skill points. And there's other things that DMs don't like mind reading. They run around reading everybody's mind so they can tell, oh, the king's evil, I read his mind. You know, the campaign's over. All right. Or, like, the player that likes to turn stone to air or stone to mud or whatever and just, like, hack his way through dungeon walls so they don't need to go past traps. They don't need to go through any of the puzzles or trips or traps or monsters or nothing. They just dig their way through the fucking walls and they wonder why the game is 20 minutes long. You know? Or, some of the maximized feats. Like if you can sling 64 damage 37 times a day, some DMs might frown at you. Or, you know, like fly or spider climb, things that let you just completely circumvent everything about the environment. Me especially, I don't allow fly or spider climb ever. It's like, you know, play the game. You know, open the door, throw the switch, open the chest. You know, don't run around with a sheep on a leash and a 10-foot pole like a fucking wuss. Play the game. That's what I'm like with flying and spider climb. And you don't have to ban anything. You don't have to. But sometimes it's shaping to the environment, like no swimming, or to the setting, like no ninjas or no assassins. But sometimes it's player scars, like me with spider climb. I had one guy that climbed on the fucking ceiling of a whole dungeon and wondered why nothing interesting ever happened to him. I was like, well, you're circumventing everything, so the dungeon's like 10 minutes long for you and 3 hours worth of gameplay for everybody else. I hope you're happy. You built what you got. So, what else? Yes, and a very important one, the last one, is what rewards do my players want? Now, you can go literal and just pass out surveys, like what kind of rewards would your character want? Like riches, or property, or fame, or titles, or like a castle to call his own, you know, fame and renown for your talents, to raise yourself up through the aristocracy, to marry a princess, to be recognized by the druids of such and such region as an archdruid, or whatever it happens to be. Find out what they want and give it to them. And not necessarily like stuff they would find in a chest. Like some guys like, yeah, I want like all the best swords. It's like, well, yeah, I can drop a +5 sword on you in session 1. Well, what do you want after that? You know? Or some people are like me. They want to be the smash and grab character, whereas like they're just interested in money so that they can go through all the books and go shopping. You know, I love shopping, so I have to get all the loot and get all the gold pieces, because shopping is a ton of fun to me, so I can get all the cool toys and things like that. Or they want to know, there's other ones that just want to know like the deeper mysteries of the world. Like they'll go looking for lore books or history books, or they'll try to raise their rank and standing with their religion, with their church or their druid circle or whatever it happens to be. Find out what their character wants, like tangibly speaking, by the end of the campaign. Like, you know, I am a fighter, I want fame and fortune and women. Well, alright, drop a sack of gold pieces on him and make sure there's a brothel in every town. He'll be happy. Or, you know, I want to understand the arcane secrets of the elemental realm of water. And, you know, drop spell books all over the place. He'll be happy. You study these spell books and he learns about outsiders and aberrations and things from the elemental plane of water. Maybe he wants to be a waterbender wizard. You never know. He might decide on all kinds of different things. At the end of the day, they're having fun with the loot you give them, so make sure it's the right kind of loot. Whether it's the horny bard picking up a pair of girls every time they go into a new town, or the paladin who likes to stand on a soapbox and spread his religion, or the fighter who wants sacks and sacks of gold pieces so that he can repay a gambling debt, or whatever it happens to be. Find out what they want and make sure it comes their way. So again, that just goes into the planning phases. But yeah, pbtenchi, like there's 7 or 8 of these. You know, what is the story? Have I done this before? Will players be 3 steps ahead of me? What's the level range? What is the bad ending? What am I banning? And what rewards do my players want? Those are kind of the big questions that I ask when I am crafting a campaign. And I'm sure there's plenty more. in the comments below, why don't you guys put in the questions? What do you ask yourself when you're crafting up a campaign for your players to play? We'll keep the conversation going, and we'll talk some more tabletop. So if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, a question, a certain monster, a campaign, a book, some opinion you want out of me, put it in the comments below, and we'll talk about it next time. So keep gaming.